Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast with Bob Andersen and Hilary Saxton, episode 186. Today we are talking, where do I start? And this is the ultimate beginner's guide to property development, but not just property development, to courses, to podcasts. Where do I start? And then when I'm started, where do I start? Bob and I will talk you through some things that you're going to find really useful and you'll be able to take away with a little bit more direction than you have right now. So let's jump on into episode 186. Hello, welcome to episode 186. I'm Hilary Saxton. This is Bob Andersen, and welcome to our podcast. We are definitely climbing in numbers, becoming one of the very popular property podcasts, which is pretty exciting. I even talk on the phone now and say hello, and it makes people very excited. But anyway, less about me, more about you, Bob. Hello.
G'day. How you going?
Oh, I'm going good. We sit next to each other the entire day and barely speak.
Well, we're busy.
Yeah.
That's why.
Oh, is that why? Some of us are busy. Anyway, Bob, he has no idea about this week's podcast.
I don't have to.
I've mapped it out for him. But what's your tip for the week?
Well, I made a mistake this week. I bought a couple of little fishing lures. You probably don't know that. And they were delivered. And I took them out of their little packets and I had a look at them. And I thought, these are great. I'm going to take them home. And I put them in my knapsack. When I got home, I had a few things to take out of my knapsack.
I mean your backpack?
My little backpack, yeah.
Yeah.
When I went home, I took a couple of things out of my backpack, forgetting I had the lures in there, and guess what? They'd come out of their packets, and next minute, ouch! And I pulled my hand out, and the lure had caught a big fish. It was me. And
my God.
I had this little tiny fish thing with a couple of treble hooks, and they were stuck in my fingers. So be a bit more careful when you're carrying your lures, I think. That's my tip this week.
Okay.
Bit of a fishing tip.
But I don't know if it's the fishing tip most, but hey, oh well. Well, in fact, one of our friends, he bought himself a really big boat, speaking of fishing tips.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him a couple of days ago because he hasn't really used it much. Like we're talking, it's on its way to being a ship. And he said on the weekend he's really embarrassed. He drove it onto the rocks.
Oh dear. Yeah. I think it not too forcefully though, I think.
I don't know. He just said he's very embarrassed. And he said, don't tell Bob. But he
So
said,
you immediately told me.
Well, he said it's all over Facebook apparently. I thought, well, if it's on Facebook, then Bob can know. Not that you'd find it on Facebook.
You said this morning that he should rename his boat Scotch. And I said, why? Scotch on the rocks.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think I'll tell him that.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't already. So anyway, Bob, we're giving the book away this week and I can't hold it up because if I tell you the truth, it's actually underneath Bob's microphone to make it higher because he forgets he's on a microphone and starts talking and pulls away and then sort of he just is so into the conversations that I have to actually put a book under it to remind him. So,
yeah, okay.
So the book this week, which I'm holding up, which you can't really see, it's actually my hand, goes to Bernard Tutangi. It's an unusual last name, Bernard, but we've spoken a couple of weeks ago and the book will be in the post to you and I hope you go straight to page 121.
Secrets of Property Millionaires Exposed. That was the book you just showed.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've showed the pile in my hand.
Book.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so Bob, today we're going to talk about where do I start, and this stemmed from another conversation I'd had with somebody.
You have plenty of conversations with people.
Yeah. Well, one of them was I've just found the podcast and I don't know where to start, and then another one was somebody who has been wanting to do property development for a while, done some courses and rang me and said, I think I want to do mentoring because I don't know where to start. And then I had a client this morning and she needs to do something. She goes, I just don't know where to start. And I thought, you know what, that's a great place to begin our podcast this week with, where shall I start?
Yep, that's a good one.
So where do we want to start? Okay, here's the big question. Where should we start?
Where should we start? I reckon if you wind it back a bit and why do you want to do property development? Like where you want to start, that's fine after you've made your mind up. But how do you make your mind up? How do you know this is what you want to do? Is it what you want to do? Is it for everybody? Well, maybe start there. What? Oh, revelation. What's happening here?
Yeah. Well, when you went home for lunch and were gone for ages, maybe.
Well, I'm a slow eater.
Anyway, a little wee dig going on. I had a phone call with somebody. I had a reminder come up in my diary that I had to ring somebody from a year ago. Oh. And
did that person say phone me in a year?
Yeah, they had. But at that time we were using a different system, and so it had just been set up as a reminder email. It came in as an email, Hilary, call this person. He wants you to call him in a year. And I'm like, what the heck?
Is he still alive?
Yeah, well, yeah. So I called him up. I just thought, oh, okay, I'll give him a call. And I said, hey, apparently, how you going? We talked a year ago. You said for me to give you a call in a year's time and see how you were going with property development. And he said to me, oh, yeah, I've done nothing. That year went fast, didn't it?
No.
Yeah, so you're right. Why do you want to do it? And he really wanted to do it then. And that's why I ended up with, well, it's always up to the person.
Yeah. He'd be halfway to making $1 million now if he had.
Yeah, is that halfway to 500,000 more than likely?
Or 250. I mean, who cares?
Yeah. Anyways, so sorry, but back to your the why. So his why obviously wasn't big enough, because when your why is big enough,
Yeah, and I guess once you make up your mind, and how do you make up your mind? Because we're all driven by different things. For some people, it's wanting to earn more money, wanting to get away from that job. It could be fly in, fly out. People who don't want to fly in and fly out all the time.
Very often the people have got new families, Bob.
Yeah, lots of reasons.
And they realise that they just don't have time with their family. They go to work all day. Yeah. They've got travelling either side. They've got things going on, and they get home and they see their children for half an hour if they're lucky.
So let's just say you're motivated to do something about it. So where do you start now? It can be a bit daunting. Like you think, okay, I want to get into property development. Because remember, I had to make my mind up once about that. Because I chose property development as something I wanted to get into after I had a bad car accident. And I was desperate to make money. That was my motivation. Where can I make a lot of money legally? And I had looked at a few illegal methods too, but I was talked out of that by my mother.
Yeah.
But anyway, the same thing. But back in my day, there weren't any courses on property development. There's nothing at uni or at TAFE or anywhere. There was no. I couldn't find any books on it either. It was a long time ago, and so I did what I could do. But these days, of course, getting into property development it's easier in a lot of ways.
Yes, it is easier. It is easier in a lot of ways, but nothing's changed. There is still a process you have to go through, and every process that you go through, whether it's learning initially, people. So let's just say, the learning initially, then whether it's finding your patch or finance or the next bit. Each of those has a process, and you have to know every step in those processes, because if you miss one out, like you had a conversation with somebody recently, they'd missed some processes out, which meant when they get to finance, things get messy. And finance is always in a time frame. By the time you get to the finance, you've got to have every, I's and T's for a certain day, or it's a done deal. Yeah,
and
he hadn't followed the process.
Nothing's changed in how you do a property development since I started, 4 decades ago. Like you say, the steps you go through, the processes you go through. I'll tell you what has changed, those values and numbers.
Yeah.
But, in a lot of ways it's gotten easier as well with technology. So I'd rather develop now than back when I started, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Not because I know a lot more. I think it's easy it actually is easy to start. It was a bit of a grind for me.
Yeah.
And, some risks as well.
So, okay, let's just start with some smaller things, and then we'll get on to, we'll finish up with some property development steps. But let's go on with the learning steps, Bob. Well, if somebody's starting off with podcasts, and there's a few out there, obviously ours is one of the more, I think, popular for developers, not just investors, or, we're probably really...
There's a lot of property investment podcasts out there. There's only a few property development ones.
So where would you say people start with our one? What would be your recommendation? And I will put some of our more popular episodes. I'll put a link for them below so you can have a look at those ones. But what's your recommendation on podcasts?
Yeah, so with podcasts, it's more you're often contacted through our office by people who watch the podcasts, and some of them come on and say, I've just found your podcast recently, or I've watched, all 180 of them or whatever.
186.
And property development, it sounds like what I want to do. And that's how the conversation starts, because they just hear you and I talking about it. They perhaps heard other people on other podcasts talk about it. They might have friends who do it or whatever. But they may at least come to that realisation they would like to do it. How do I start? And that's often a conversation you have with people. And it does start with education. Once you've made your mind up, it's like anything, you have to learn how to do it.
But I'm meaning, like, if we were to give someone direction on the podcast, where should they start with the podcast? Where do you recommend that they start with our, if you're going to listen to these podcasts?
To our podcast?
Yeah, which one would you start with?
Oh, I start at number 100 because we got better and better. We started off pretty ordinary, I have to say.
I'd probably start at about 70.
Okay. Well, there you go.
But I think what you'll find with our podcast, we always make sure there's nuggets in there. There'll be gold in every one. You've got to remember it's something we do because we're passionate about it. That's one thing. It's also something we do to educate people so you get to know us. You get to hear us. You get to, if you want to do business with us, you actually need to know, like, and trust us. And this is why we do
there's
it.
good content from number 1 onwards. Yeah. Well, what I was getting at, it was all new and fresh to us, and we sort of stumbled a little bit probably in our first few podcasts, but content's still there. Just overlook that.
So you don't have you don't have a specific. You know what? Funny, I'm asking you because you'd be like, I have no idea.
I would have to read the titles of our podcasts and go and selectively pick some out. But
even with
you
that,
can do that,
like all businesses, the titles are, we want you to be enticed to listen to it. So just because the title doesn't sound exciting doesn't mean it doesn't have great content.
Yeah.
We could have just got the title wrong.
Yeah. And the thing about education is you've got to go past education. I mean, you can't, when I say past it, you can't skip it. But education, and what we're talking about is learning how to do property development. That's theory. Now, how do you do how do you look for a site? How do you do due diligence? How do you do a feasibility? How do you get a development permit, a building permit? How do you select your consultants? Where do you go to get finance for property development, et cetera, et cetera? So they're all, how to, and initially they're theory. But what you have to do to be successful, you've got to convert theory into practice. And that's the same with anything. I often use fishing as an analogy because, I love to fish, even though you love to fish too and you always outfish me. That aside, like, you could read every fishing magazine there is out there. You could study the tides, the cycles of the moon, bait, different types of rods and reels and lines and hooks and lures. And you could read all that and have an enormous amount of knowledge in your head. But until you actually go down to the water and cast a line in, you'll never catch a fish. So theory's good, you need it, but you have to apply the theory. And I suppose, that it's a step beyond education, isn't it?
Yeah, agreed, Bob. We do have to put it into practice. And there is a lot of theory to absorb.
Yeah, but it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's exciting.
Especially if you're into it. Like, if you're into something.
I'm into it.
It's like Bob about fishing, property, UFC, and American politics. He's into those.
Oh, well, yeah.
Got
to have an interest. It's quite diversified.
But they're all things that you're passionate about,
Yeah.
so that to you they're not a chore.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Well, we've got on the 18th of February, it's a Tuesday, we're running a lunchtime series this year, every month or 2 months. So we do have one in February on the 18th, and it's from 1 till 2 Sydney time. So 12 Queensland time.
Yep.
Or 1 to 1:45. It's about a 45-minute session.
About 45.
We did one at the end of the year last year. And
you
then I
did
one.
I
did one on mindset.
You did one.
Yep.
So I'm doing the next one, in February.
And that's on feasibilities, Bob. So
it's on finding a site, this one.
Is it? I think you'll find it's on feasibilities. It is on finding a site. I take that back. It is on finding a site.
I hope so.
Okay. So you might want to jump on that one. So, Bob, as far as the level of education on the process of that goes, what do you intend to cover on that lunchtime 45-minute?
Yeah, well, it's how to get out in the marketplace, because until you find a site, you've got nothing. You've got nothing to build upon, literally. And so it's how do we do that? What sort of connections do we need to make? What's the best way of doing it? Do we just tackle a whole city? Do we narrow the field down to a specific area? Who are the people that can help us? What are the tools that can help us? To find that site, and that's the beginning of it all. So we'll go through that. I'll go through an example as well. Usually like to go through a live case study at the end about a particular development, maybe one we're doing at the moment or just finished, and how we found that. Yeah, so that, once again, that's sort of applying the theory to a real project.
And I think even if you listen back through other projects, you'll hear through other interviews we've done, on this, you'll often hear how the people found their site.
Yeah.
And so there are lots of different ways, but you're going to go through the process of probably the most common way, would you say? Or what you think's the simplest?
Yeah, we'll talk about how, difference between on-market and off-market sites, sort of agents you need to deal with, the sort of research you can do in the background. Yeah, just how to nail down that deal. That's the first step in any property development, getting that site, really important.
So where do I start? Finding a site.
Yeah, exactly. The next one I'll do after that will be the due diligence side of it. We found one, looks good. Is it really good? I mean, should we sign a contract on this site?
But that won't be till April because between February and April we've got our masterclass in March, and I did get an email because we've started advertising the early bird for that. So this year our masterclass, so if you're interested in how we do that, we used to run a 3.5-hour masterclass around the process of property development, teaching you, what it is you need to do, or the process of property development. And again, very theory orientated, very just talking through the process. If you did a masterclass, there's no way you can become a property developer. You will learn stuff, but it's not going to be enough for you to walk away. And that's what everyone has those free events for. This one is a little bit different. Like I said, it has just a nominal fee. We want people if you say you're coming, we want you to come, rather than say I'll come and then say I want the recording and never do anything with it. So if you are committed, like I said, there is an early bird, which is only $47. So that's the early bird, and there's not much the difference between the main one. But the difference between the lunchtime mini masterclasses and the actual masterclass in March is, Bob, you're applying this time, taking through not just the theory, you're actually going to take through the application.
Yeah, so in the past with the masterclass, I've gone through all the different steps in the how-to, how to do this, how to do that. But, one step follows another, the process. This time, I'm going to do that because that's the theory. This is what I was talking about before. That'll be the theory side of it. Now we're going to put the theory into practice. And I've chosen a project that we just completed ourselves. It's a duplex project. It's half sold, very close on selling the other half. And I'm going to...
Is there news?
Well, until you see a signed contract.
Yeah.
It's, maybe.
Okay.
So as well as the theory, I'm going to take you through a project. It's a project we've just completed, and I can then apply everything we've learned in the first part of the masterclass to this particular project. And so you're going to learn a lot, not just the theory, but you're going to see how we did it, how we went out there, how we found a site, the sort of due diligence we did, the numbers we looked at, how we chose a builder, all these sorts of things, all these different steps. So that's a great way. The theory's great. The theory of property development is great.
We need theory, yeah.
But then to see it manifest, there's a good word, into a real, like a project.
Yeah.
There it is. Bang.
Not even like a project.
A duplex.
It was a project.
A beautiful upmarket duplex. And I'll be able to show you that. I'll have slides up. It's a great learning experience.
Just providing real insights for people on, it's so often we hear stuff but being able to see as well will make a massive difference. So really worth coming to, and a great place to start property development when you can actually, I get it now, because we won't just be going through the process. Go through the process, showed you how we did that process, and show you the outcome that each of those steps provided.
Yeah, great outcome.
Yeah, and then, as well as with the hiccups and the road bumps and the humps, trust me, nothing's ever perfect.
No.
I don't know if for those watching on YouTube, you may have just noticed there's a fly just zoomed across the screen. Nothing's ever perfect. But that's kind of the real world. So that's a really great place to start.
Well, that's the masterclass.
Yeah, and also with that, because people like to talk to you about their projects, and often they're telling you and you're excited and you want to hear because you want to learn, but they're missing steps. And you don't want to miss any of the vital steps in property development. So this is a great place to be able to learn how to apply the theory, that blueprint, those strategies, those steps, the process. And then, Bob, so and there are plenty of opportunities that other people may offer to see how they've done it, I'm sure, out there in the Wild West. But then the other thing we have, obviously, is our online course, so our bundle, and that's the online course, 2 tickets to the workshop. Sort of sounds like an advert, but I just thought it was a really good time to sum up what we do, because I get so many questions. So The online course is for life. It's everything you need to know. It's Australia's best. We've been told that numerous times. But it's just very comprehensive, and it's video-based, and you can watch it at your own time, and you only pay for it once, and you can come to a workshop, you can bring a friend, you bring your partner, all of that stuff. Got the live Q&As and that coaching sessions that are online. And it's just a great product, and plenty of people go on to do property development from there.
Yeah, hundreds, many hundreds.
Or thousands.
Probably thousands.
Yeah. Well, how many have you sold how many of people have purchased it over the time?
Oh, many thousands. Yeah. So there's a lot of property developers out there who, that was their launchpad. And some of them are quite big property developers now because, been doing it for a while.
Yes. So the next thing that we offer is our mentoring program. So where do you get started with that? How does that work? Well, you get everything else. So you get all of the education that we just spoke about, but then you just get that complete handhold with us. So, and that's a conversation you have with me, because we don't take everyone on, but we just make sure that you're a right fit for us, because we just like to work with people that are definitely just positive mindset and really want results and know their why, and, are able to do it. And, we know that they have the capacity to be able to do it. So if that's you, you're welcome to reach out and ask more. But when we go through the mentoring process with people, what's usually, our first step from them? This is a great place that we can help people get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people go straight to the mentoring program.
Oh, for sure.
Because they get all the education, plus then they get the mentoring. But where we normally start off, because we have limited numbers, right? We don't shoot for big numbers at all. We have very limited numbers, and what that allows us to do is to tailor, or if you like, build it around the person, what they need to achieve. Because look, not everybody's the same. Some people have time on their hands. Some people have a very small amount of time. Some people have, a big chunk of money. Some people have little money. Some people, have a family. Time's, really tight. A whole range of things. Some people live in different places. Some people want to start off with, this particular type of project. Other people want to do that. So we can customise the program to suit the person. Some people need investors. Okay, if you need an investor to do your first project, then there's a certain path that we go down that helps you do that. And so I think that's what makes ours unique, is that it's customised for the individual.
But now that we say that, everyone's going to say that.
Well, go for it, but
we know, yeah.
But the point is, a lot of mentoring programs, not just property development, you've got to be careful with the word mentoring, are one-to-many, whereas we're one-to-one.
Yeah, I'm in a mentoring program that's one-to-many.
Unlimited one-to-one, not, an hour a month one-to-one.
Yeah.
Because property development, you can't just chop it up and say, I'll give you X minutes a week. Property development could be really intense. Like today, I've had 5 emails just from one individual.
What about first thing this morning? Lucky I get up early. At 6 a.m, there's a text on my phone saying, can I talk to Bob today? And about 15 minutes later, he texted back and said, I actually have something else come up. And because it's custom, so we know their job, we know what they do. So I was able to say, yeah, of course, so that's why it's tailored, because people have demanding roles in their life, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, so, because it was intense today, we're looking at a deal. They're ready to perhaps put in an offer. We're fine-tuning numbers. There's a lot of back and forth between the agent, them, ourselves, just helping them out. So that's quite intense.
Yeah. But
it's not always like that. So that's the difference between being there when you really need it. You can't just chop that up and say, I'll give you 10 minutes or half an hour a month or whatever on, every second Thursday. It doesn't work like that. Property development doesn't work like that.
And, okay, so let's look at that for somebody, you right now, thinking you've got enough, you've understand the process, what's your first step? Well, number one, you do need education in some form, so make sure you have some. And then usually at that point, people go, I don't know what to do next. I actually don't know what to do next. So what's the number one step that you believe, Bob, is your favourite place for people to get started? What's that first step? The first move they make is what? After they've spoken to me. But
After they've spoken to you.
No, but what is the first step that somebody should make?
Well, be sure that it's what you really want, because it's not always easy. You can glorify it and talk about the amount of money you can make when you do a project well, but, you go in eyes wide open. So is this really for you? Can you, it isn't for everybody. If you're absolutely risk adverse, just put your money in the bank. Property development's not that we take high risks. All our risks are calculated. If you want to call it risks, I don't even call it that. It's going through the processes, but ticking off every box. So once you know you want to do it, is to have a look around, and because the next step is education. You can't just launch into a property development. You can't learn off a real estate agent or anybody else, and so have a really good look out there.
Can I just interrupt on that one as well? Because it's really important that you understand feasibilities and numbers. And I was speaking to somebody recently who said, the agent had done their physio and sent it through. And,
God. Tragic.
You have to do your own numbers because they might be right, but they're likely not going to be.
99 times out of 100, they'll be wrong, and they'll be wrong on the wrong way.
Yeah.
They'll make a bad deal look good.
Yeah.
Not intentionally.
No,
they just don't know
how.
It's not that simple.
Yeah, so that's why you need to learn, because you can't trust the information that somebody else has given you, because you don't know exactly what they know, and they might be, I've done some property developments, and you just still don't know what that means.
No.
So then, Bob?
Look around for education.
Yep.
Whether it's a course, if you really want to jump in boots and all, not waste time, get into it, then it's a course probably plus a mentoring program.
Yep. And then once they've decided they're good to go, what is the first step? Say they just have a course and not mentoring, so there's no handhold. What do you believe is the very first step? I mean, I know what I'm going to say, but you've got to do your bit.
If you're not doing a course.
No, you've done a course.
You don't. Okay. Well, work out what you can afford to do. For a start, it's no point looking at a 6-pack of townhouses if you can only afford to do a duplex, unless you're going to pull investors in. So understand what you can afford and start narrow down an area where you're going to do it. What do you got in mind?
Yeah, that was where I was going. There's that. Have it, and while you're doing that, then start looking at the structure you're going to set it up, and you're not going to buy something in your own name. So making sure that you've got the right connection and you've got your right structure set up, so you are buyer ready should something come up. So you need to be buyer ready, and then you need to be looking in a patch. And what I tell our mentoring students is that if someone sneezes in your patch and you didn't get to say bless you, well, you don't know your patch well enough. You need to know everything that's going on in there. So that's why you start off small, because after a while you become so confident there that if you don't find something, you can just go, just eke it out a wee bit more.
You can expand it from there.
But, you hear people say that all the time, find your patch, and you really do need to find your patch. So that's the number one, find your patch.
Yep.
And at the same time, set your structure up and start understanding how your money comes together. Would you?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. There you go.
It's about finance, about patch.
We're about 29 minutes in. We got to the very end, but we've given some valuable information on the way.
Well, that's the very first thing to do.
Yeah.
Once you know you're going to do it, education and that.
Yeah. So I think, Bob, we might wind it up there, because your phone's bleeping, because as a reminder, you've got to talk to somebody on the phone about evaluation. Yeah. and so that's happening now. But your takeaways are, well, we've got a few events coming up. There's a free one. Definitely want to jump on that, which was finding a site. And
that's the lunchtime one.
That's lunchtime on the 18th. We've got the 29th of March was our 3.5-hour masterclass, and that's where this time we're applying that process. Really worth jumping on. There is a nominal fee on that, but it's worth it, and it's for people that are committed, because how many times you sign up for something and don't go, hello, I'm a queen at that. And then we've got products available, but if it's not us, then it's somebody else, and that's okay. But just go into...
Do your due diligence, do your research.
Go into it with your eyes wide open.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think your alarm's getting on my nerves.
I know. I've got to make a call.
It's done. All righty. Well, that was the end of 186, and the book will be in the post to you. Who's it going? Bernard, wasn't it? Yep. Bernard, book's in the post to you. And to everyone else who listened, thank you for listening. We'll catch you again next week.
See you soon.
Bye.